the actual economics and how corporate India is receiving this. Naina Lal Kidwai is former country head of HSBC India. Hiranandani is a managing director of Hiranandani Group. And Bodhisatva Ganguli is consulting editor with Network18. Naina Lal Kidwai, let me start with you first. Of course, for corporate India, for the markets, for ratings agencies, the big headline is the fact that despite an election in a couple of months from now, the finance minister has stuck to fiscal prudence. It's 5.8, the fiscal deficit for this year, and 5.1 for the upcoming year, sticking to the fiscal glide path. How may that, though, translate into what people want? Because ultimately, when people look at this budget, when I mean people, I'm talking about it from the context of elections, the Aam Aadmi, they are wanting something tangible. And this is the attack from the opposition. There is nothing tangible in this budget.
I think to start with, we have to laud the fact that there is fiscal discipline coming through. And don't forget, for everything that the government gets more disciplined about, the worries that we've had in the past that over-borrowing by government squeezes out the private sector has also been a concern. So what we're really looking at in terms of the fisc is also getting capital expenditure from the private sector, pushing capital expenditure from public sector companies, etc., into the system. Now, if the fiscal deficit is happening, and I don't believe it is happening at the cost of social development programs, then yes, I would agree that there is a cause for worry. Is there need for more money to throw at the system? And I can tell you from experience, I have been working in water and sanitation through the not-for-profit I chair, the India Sanitation Coalition, that the absorptive power of the grassroots to even absorb the funds that are being made available through the states down to the Gram Panchayat are not indeed where they need to be. So, for example, in the sanitation space, the centre has released funding. Funding is sitting down at the Gram Panchayats in the state, but they are not being able to spend it. And the ministry, at the Jal Shakti Ministry, got concerned that this money is not being spent, so has asked us to bring in private sector partners, not for the money they bring, but for their ability to make sure that these villages at the Gram Panchayat level can indeed be declared model villages by spending the money that government is providing to ensure.
But how then do you explain, ma'am? I mean, the government says 10 crore toilets have been built, 24 crore new tap connections have been given, pipeline connections have been given. How is all this happening if villages and down at the Gram Panchayat level, they're not able to use these capacities?
It's happening, but it's not happening at the pace the government is releasing the money at. So
okay.
The issue here is that the government has a vision, has an ambition, which needs to translate down at the grassroots. And they are now looking at these public-private partnerships to bring in those that know how to execute at the grass level, namely the private sector, to lend a helping hand as well, which is how it should be.
Okay.
So the point here is that if it's not the shortage of money, it's the shortage of execution resources that is the issue, then we have to spend our energies there, not at flinging more money down a pipe
okay.
which is not used.
Mr. Hiranandani, talking about the housing sector, and I'll start from the bottom of the pyramid to the top. At the bottom of the pyramid, the government claims it's run the biggest PM Awas Yojana. 3 crore houses for poor people have been built, and they're now trying to up that by another 2 crore homes in the next 5 years. That's in the segment affordable housing for poorer segments. At the top end of the pyramid, many middle-class Indians, upper middle-class Indians are saying that housing has now become unaffordable. You had a COVID dip, prices were depressed, but in the last year and a half, it's suddenly once again in major metros across this country, it's become unaffordable for the middle classes and the upper middle classes. What has the government done? What has this budget done to address that concern?
I think 3 factors, Mr. Jacob. The first factor is the fact that up till now, the PMAY scheme was extremely successful. May not be in the city of Mumbai and Delhi, but certainly in the rest of the country, it has been very, very effective. And they have successfully done the 3 crore houses. And these have been released through the financial institutions, which have ensured, unlike what Kidwai ji said about it just now in the toilet side, I can assure you that the money as far as the affordable housing scheme was well managed in terms of how it reached the persons who actually took the money. So affordable housing, we have not had a problem. The hit in the urban sector is very clear. and they have managed it perfectly. Number two, that in the last 6 months to 1 year, the PMAY scheme was exhausted, as well as we had a double problem. The second problem was that interest rates went up. Earlier, affordable housing interest rates was 6.5%. They are now 8.5, 8.7. Now that 2% hike from 6% is unbearable in the affordable segment, and the EMIs are crossing the thing. And that is why two things need to be done. One, we need to bring back the PMAY scheme, which is what they are planning to do in terms of the 2 crore housing that is there, which is essential because otherwise you're going to have a problem in the affordable segment. And the second part of the entire thing is to bring down interest rates. Now, obviously, interest rates have got other factors which is governed by the RBI and the other inflationary issues that are there. Okay. So if you do and remanage both these aspects of it, I can assure you that as far as affordable housing, it will spring back. As far as middle housing and the luxury element of it, the growth has been more than 15% compounded this year. So there's been a huge increase both in terms of lending terms and others, and the affordable segment will come back as soon as both these factors are connected, one which is in the hands of the government, the other in the hands of the RBI.
So, Bodhisatva Ganguli, Mr. Ganguli, you know, one of the headline features, again, of today's budget and indeed the last 2 or 3 budgets has been the spend on capital expenditure. 11.1 lakh crores, that's an 11% increase already to what has been a 3.5 times jump since the Modi government came to power. And yet, why are we not seeing that? It was conventionally said it's the public sector that has to lead the way as far as capex is concerned, and then the private sector will crowd in. Animal spirits will be unleashed. Why aren't we seeing that? Certainly not to the degree that was expected.
Yeah, thanks, Zaka. So I think it's true. I think there is some indication that private sector investment is picking up. See, typically private sector investment picks up when the capacity utilization crosses a certain threshold level. Let's say between 75% to 80% in most industries. And I think we have reached that level in many sectors. So we are seeing some investment happening. We are seeing investments. If you look at you are seeing investment in cement and steel, in paints, in some of the basic sectors. It is true that it's less than what you would want. Also, there are the PLI scheme has certainly had an impact. I mean, we now have a huge cell phone manufacturing industry in the country, a very large TV manufacturing industry in the country. 10% of iPhones are made in India. Which is quite remarkable, up from almost nothing some years back. I mean that's a headline figure. Apple is an iconic company, and if you look at every investor conference at which Tim Cook talks, he has something positive to say on India, which has a huge positive spillover in terms of brand India or brand Bharat. So yes, I mean it is picking up. The thing also, and I want to address a criticism which is often made that these, such as the iPhone factories, are assembly operations, but you need to start with assembly. I mean, if Tesla comes to India, it will be an assembly operation to start with. But you start with assembly and then you go deeper into, deeper levels of competence. So yeah, but I think private sector investment should now pick up. And I mean, but it will happen when industry wants to invest. One of the reasons which Mr. Hiranandani alluded to in the context of housing is also applicable to investment, which is that interest rates are still quite high in India. So once the rate cutting cycle begins, which should begin somewhere late this year, provided inflation stays under control, then I think private investment would pick up in a whole range of sectors. That's not the only thing. I think it is happening. But yes, it has lagged behind a bit. One can't deny that.